Good evening and welcome back, poetry lovers. It is I, ZM Wise, and here I am with Dustin Pickering. And he is holding in his hands TZ Press's latest book called The Devil's Playground. Dustin, tell us about how the author came into contact with us and the process and the construction of this tome.
Well, the author is from Sarajevo, and he found us through social media, probably Facebook, and he contacted me directly and said he was interested in having a title published by TZ Press. And he sent me the manuscript, and I read through it, and I've had a special kind of interest in that region since I learned about Kosovo and whatnot back in the 90s and some of the surrounding issues, political issues, and so I gave it special attention. And in the process of while I read it, I sent it to you, ZM, and said, take a look at this and give me your thoughts.
That's right.
And eventually, he got back. You got back in touch and said it looks nice. I like it. And then we talked about how should we accept it. And I got back in touch with the author and said we'll take it. We'll get it out there for you. It took it a long time. It was several months in the making because I kind of put it off a few times. We didn't actually start until December, and I let ZM here do the interior while I had Glenn Monroe Irby on the cover. And basically, ZM got a copy. This is the first actual book he's put together other than Lipstick. Lipstick was partially him and partially me. But we did this book. He completely did the interior, and it worked out very well.
Don't forget Day of the Speckled Trout.
And Day of the Speckled Trout as well was another one that ZM did. But this was, I think, the first one that really was like, a lot of effort and time went into it because there was translations.
Yes.
And he had the titles in both his language and in English, and we had to play with those and get the titles that were in his language off at his request. So, in the long shot, as it went, this was a great book. I sent him a copy. I'm hoping that we'll see some sales on it. So far, none. So if you do like poetry, this is a very good book. I love the design. I enjoy the material. It's a very unique style. I've never read anything quite as interesting in terms of syntax and use of punctuation and sentence structure. So give it a look. Order a copy. We'll probably have some kind of deal where you can order this and another one for a certain price or something, and get them. So keep on the lookout for that.
Definitely. Before we move on to the next book, Dustin, can you tell me a little bit about the cover art? I'm noticing Snow White and I believe Sisyphus is the other figure on the cover.
Yes, in the poetry in the collection, Snow White and Sisyphus are both mentioned, and the author, as I was reading this, and I mentioned to the author, I said, well, it seems that your imagery in the book is kind of reflective of the national character of Bosnia, which is his homeland. And I said, it sounds like that's what you're attempting to symbolize. And he said, yes, he said, and he kind of said, well, the poetry itself will be hard to, what it means is sort of a mystery, but a lot of it did come down to descriptive of the national character, which these two figures here, Snow White and Sisyphus, which I drew this picture one morning as we were clamping down on time. Took me about 2 hours. These are markers and colored pencils, and I got this book together, and we finally clamped down on it. And anyway, well, these characters here, which are national, pretty much easily recognized by anyone, symbolize the national character of Bosnia. And so that was the basic goal, I think, of his poetry, was to reflect today's Bosnia poetically.
Of course. All right, so let's move on to the second book, Dustin.
Let's certainly do so.
Now, this is as Lipstick by Faleeha Hassan, And could you please tell us a little bit more about her? How did she come to discover TZ Press, and what did she send to us first before the manuscript?
Well, I'm really not sure how she found us. I imagine it's social media. You know, we're all out there and on Facebook and Twitter and everywhere else. She sent me a handful of poems, and she sent me her bio. And her bio was about, like, it was like a press kit basically. And I looked through it, and I looked through the poems she sent, and she sent me another handful later on. And I picked a couple for the journal a few issues back. And I also asked her, since she sent me one document that was multiple poems, it was like several pages long. I said, "Would you like to publish a book with us?" And she answered, "That would be very nice." And so we were more than excited looking at her bio and the things she's done. She seemed like somebody we would really like to have in our team because she had been called the Maya Angelou of Iraq.
That's right.
And she had been chased out of Iraq, threat of her life, moved into Turkey, and in Turkey the same thing happened. I believe it came down to the fact she was a woman and she was kind of trying to take leadership capacity for herself and teaching and writing, and they did not approve of that in those countries, and she was chased out. She came here to America in New Jersey. But the strength, moral character she had demonstrated in those situations made me more interested in what she had to say and what she wrote. And there's some very beautiful poetry in this, very strong poetry, and I think it's especially pertinent in today's political crisis where we have Iraq torn down basically and a lot of this Middle Eastern stuff. I mean, I think it would be great for someone to pick up this book, take a look at it, try to understand what's being said. It's another one where I say that the style is very unique, I think partially because of its fact that it was translated. It was both translated by a handful of scholars who could do English and the language it was written in, as well as Faleeha herself. So this is a wonderful collection, and I think it will be instructive, and I think it's a living document as to what a person can feel as a woman being oppressed in a country that is very intolerant of women being strong, you know. So I think this is something wonderful, especially female writers in this country should be willing to take a look at this and feel blessed that they're in America. I think that's a great feeling you could get from this.
Right on, right on. All right, so that is the long and short of it, people. We have here Lipstick by Faleeha Hassan and
Devil's Playground
by
Sabahudin Hadžialić.
That's right, that's right.
I hope I pronounced that right.
Get yours today, people. You can find us on www.transcendentzeropress.org, and we are also on Twitter under the handle TZPress1, as well as Facebook. This is Dustin Pickering and ZMY's signing off. Poetry lives.